Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
Brash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Question everything.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Open your eyes.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Challenge the opposition.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist worldwide.
We are broadcasting this radio show, this podcast, from Missouri State University, as I'm hosted by a very special group called the Springfield Free Thinkers. You guys having a good time tonight? Now, I did a live presentation, and we did a live, sort of an in-studio podcast in St. Louis last night. It was the only one on my schedule, and we had such a good time. I asked the crowd here tonight, would you guys be interested in maybe doing another one? We'll just call it a bonus show this week since we're doing the tour and the speeches, and everybody was game, and everybody stayed, which is always a good feeling, and I'm so glad you're here. I received an email from a buddy of mine today, and he said, hey, online I am in a conversation with some believers, and we're talking about hell. And I know you have a lot of these types of conversations. Feel free to jump into the conversation and sound off. How many people here are on Facebook or a forum of some kind? Can I see a show of hands? Almost everybody in the audience. How many people see almost daily, if not daily, posts about praising Jesus? Okay? Let me hear an amen. Amen. All righty. How many people here have posted something that was free thought related and you were immediately chided for being intolerant? Can I see a show of hands? Raw men. May you be touched by his noodly appendage. I did a Flying Spaghetti Monster video. I call it The One True God. Did it a few years ago. It was just a gag. It's still floating around out there on YouTube. Anyway, this guy, he's a buddy of mine. He said, feel free to engage. And I have a cost-benefit conversation in my mind, and you guys probably know what this is like, right? If I post something that refutes this backward thinking or bad information or bad science or whatever, I am going to unleash the floodgates. I'm going to hear from people I probably never even met who were on a friends list of a friends list of a friends list who were in the comments section over here. And they will not only comment to my comment, but they'll send me a personal message out of nowhere, chiding me for being deceived and an agent of the evil one. Anybody can relate? Please tell me so. All right. But you say, why do they get to post every freaking day? Praise Jesus, I found a parking space today. Praise Jesus for the beautiful weather today. Praise God, I passed my final that I studied 2 weeks for, right? Praise Jesus, my son, my daughter, my relative had this amazing thing happen to them. By the way, and I'll digress for just a second, when you're wearing God glasses, it doesn't matter what happens. Jesus is the good guy, right? You get a raise at the office. Praise Jesus, God is so good. You get laid off from your job. You know, where God closes a door, you know he opens a window. You heard that? Right? This is a test of our faith, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Doesn't matter what happens. I did a scenario in a speech I did called Blind Spots, where we talked about a guy named Stephen. Stephen is involved in a gang shooting. And in 3 scenarios, we talk about how Jesus is always the good guy. In the first scenario, The bullets passed through his body, missing all the major organs, and the family in the waiting room praises Jesus. It's a miracle. God divinely guided the bullets away from the heart, the liver, the spleen, the spinal cord, the brain. Remember Richard Dawkins talking about the Pope being shot, and the Pope said it was the Lady of Fatima that caused the bullets to be directed. And of course, his question was the same one we're asking. Why wouldn't God cause the bullet to miss him outright? Why have it go through his skin and miss the organs? Jesus is good. Praise God. Stephen's permanently injured. Scenario number 2, maybe he's in a wheelchair, has permanent brain damage. Stephen should have been killed. That should have been a fatal injury. He was shot point blank 4 times, and yet he's still with us today. God must have had more plans for Stephen. It's a miracle that he's alive today. God is good. Praise Jesus, right? Scenario 3 is that Stephen is dead. They say things, and I understand why they say them. God called Stephen home. He's in a place now where there's no grief, no pain, no violence. He's in a place where there's only bliss, walking the streets of gold and enjoying mansions, a crown, and all of these amazing things. And one day we'll be reunited. Maybe they donate Stephen's organs to help save the life of someone else. This was God's way of using Stephen to help save the life of another. Praise Jesus. God is good. Nearly impossible to have a reasonable conversation with people who think like this, and I was the same way, programmed at an early age. I was looking at the world through God glasses. So you see the Facebook debate. You see the forum debate. You see whatever the debate is. And you think, I'm wasting my time, and I'm going to bring down a whole bunch of grief in my life. But why do they get to be the only ones who get to voice a perspective here? And if no one ever stands up and refutes bad information, it never gets refuted. So you have the conversation, and finally you jump in. Well, I jumped in today. We talked a little bit about hell, right? And they're saying things like, we were born sinners. It's a fallen world, but Jesus came, died on the cross 2,000 years ago so that we might be saved from hell. You guys heard that kind of poetic speech about Jesus, right? We didn't deserve it, but he came to earth in human form and allowed himself to be horribly killed for our benefit and rose again, and one day he'll come again and call us to heaven. So I start typing. Hang on just a second. God's omniscient, right? God knows everything. So God saw the fall of man, billions of people damned to eternal torture, and he saw it happen before he ever created the world. Why did he continue with the plan, knowing it was front-loaded against so many? And so many would be horribly tortured. So many would be punished. And if he didn't know, is he really omniscient? Why would God have to send his child to be tortured and killed for us to pay for our sins if he's omnipotent? He could manifest redemption immediately. He blinked the cosmos into existence. If he wanted to create redemption for us, he's God. Hey, look, here's redemption. It's over here with a gift wrap on it. Would you like it, right? He hasn't interfered with free will. Why didn't he do that? Why did he have to impregnate a teen girl with himself so that he could have himself horribly tortured and executed? Why? If hell exists, how does heaven exist? Heaven is eternal bliss. There's a husband and wife. She's a believer, he's a non-believer. They both die in a car wreck or something, right? She goes to heaven. Eternal joy, no pain, no sorrow, only bliss. How can she have eternal bliss with the knowledge that her earthly husband is being tormented forever? How could heaven exist, a place of eternal joy, if the person in heaven had the knowledge that a child, a daughter, a son, a cousin, an uncle, an aunt, a cherished friend, even a total stranger who'd led a good life, was writhing in agony, how could heaven exist? And of course, you get back well, God wipes everybody's memory when they get to heaven, which means if you've thrown that argument out, you have now entered an intellectual brigadoon. You are way off the reservation. Nothing is going to penetrate that particular membrane. Why an infinite punishment for a finite crime? Why is God so weird about rescuing us from the hell he himself created, right? God himself made hell. It was his idea. You die, he hand places you there. You don't slip into hell by accident. Matthew 25, depart from me, all you who are cursed, into everlasting fire. It's God's idea. Is a God who would create hell worth worshiping? I did a whole litany of these, right? The kind of stuff you probably present to your friends and family and associates in the arena of ideas. What kind of stuff do you normally get back? Magical thinking. It's a slave mentality. What I got back is, who am I to question the mind of God, right? You guys have heard that one. I am just a human being. Who am I to ever put God to the test? I must trust that he knows what is best for me. And I love him so much. It's a battered spouse syndrome, is it not? He wouldn't do it unless it was best for me. He only does it because he loves me. This is the thinking. And so that's how I spent my morning at the hotel before I drove here from St. Louis, Missouri, is presenting this host of arguments and receiving return volleys of, I don't care what you say, God is love, God is all, I love Jesus so much. I know you are out there fighting the fight for reason in your own circles. I know you are dealing with many who are religious in your family tree, who are coworkers. Maybe some of you are going through a challenge of being a free thinker in a religious work environment. And so what I wanted to do is, the subjects are wide open, but I wanted you to share with me your perspectives tonight, any questions or comments you might have, anything you want to get off your chest tonight. Since we're doing an in-studio podcast, I'd rather not make it all about me. Let's talk about what you want to talk about. So who would like to be first behind the microphone? Well, just step on up here. If you'd like, we'll cue you on this side. If you want, sneak a chair here, and I'll try to keep an eye on you so I don't break the order. What's your name?
Jake.
Jake, what do you have for us tonight?
I want to say that I'm grateful to you for starting Thinking Atheist, and this is the first time in 35 years of life and about 15 years of being an atheist that I've had an opportunity to be around like-minded people and be in a forum like this, so I'm very grateful. And I was hoping maybe you'd take a minute to speak a little bit more on what you thought the future of this movement or philosophy or whatever you want to call it might be in, say, 20 years. In your closing statements in your presentation, it was about fighting for the minds of children, and I was wondering how we might go about doing that.
Well, I'm a believer that I was speaking to Miriam Namazi, who's a fighter for human rights, women's rights, specifically in the face of radical Islam. And she said in our podcast together that she's convinced the political solution is probably the big solution, right? We're all fighting the small skirmishes on our everyday lives, but we're going to have to continue to do battle at the upper tiers when they try to introduce creationist legislation under the guise of whatever it is they're calling it, whatever intellectually dishonest, lawyerized term that they come up with. It's some kind of a fairness legislation. Teach the controversy, teach all sides. It scares you to death to think that if that passes, not only are they going to be legally required to teach creationism, but talk about what else is covered under that blanket? Scientology? Is that an equal possibility? I hope not. You know, Xenu, the intergalactic overlord, drove your aura or inner Thetan here to the earth, you see, and now you have to mortgage your house and spend $500,000 to Tom Cruise's church in order to be released and receive power. Yeah, that sounds like a great thing to teach our youngest and most vulnerable. I think a legal battle is probably going to be huge. I think activism, frontlines activism against the people who are trying to change or alter our laws is huge. And I'm a big believer in being seen by the people you rub elbows with. And I'm not talking about committing professional or personal suicide. I know everybody's in a specific and unique situation. But you have every right to live and own your worldview. Highly religious state, you're treated like an anomaly. You're the freak. You're the one who doesn't get it. You are horribly deceived. You have every right to stand up and live your own worldview and to have others see you do so. And I have found that when you stand up and you live truth and reason and science and you have the guts to stand up against mythology, the people waiting sort of on the sidelines, taking the temperature of the situation, gain courage by watching you. I'm amazed. I've had people say, you know what, I was silent for years. And when I saw this, for me, it was a speech by Christopher Hitchens. He proved to me that it was okay to challenge God. Lightning did not come from the sky and fry Christopher Hitchens during the debate at the 92nd Street Y. And it empowered me. You know what? I might start asking a few questions. I think you own it. As much as you can in your personal situation, own it, live it, keep your eyes and ears open, and prove to them that a rational, deity-free life is a great life, a moral life, a fulfilled life, a much more fulfilled life than one based in superstition. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much, Seth.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. What's your name?
My name's Colton. I'm from Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I've got a story and then a question. First of all, you actually told part of it during the morality podcast. I recently shot you an email about the call video. Okay, so 8 months ago now, I came out, with air quotes, as an atheist. And then a month after that, my dad left my mom for another woman after what we found out was a year-long affair. And then a month after that, my grandmother died, and then 2 weeks later, my grandfather died. And so, needless to say, my family's been in shambles, and through all this, I've been really dealing with, the loss of my faith and coming out and, being a free thinker in Arkansas. I mean, it's not that pleasant of a place to be.
Thinker in Arkansas.
Yeah. Thinker in Arkansas. They are not as common as they are in other places, that's for sure. And so anyway, a couple weeks ago, I was having a conversation with my mom. I try and be real open with her. She's extremely religious the way I used to be. I mean, before my apostasy, I actually wanted to be a missionary. That was my entire life goal, just to give you a bit of perspective of how religious I was. And so basically, we were having a conversation. I try and be real open with her, and then, she actually brought it up. And then it ended with her in tears, and I live with my mom because I moved home with her after the divorce just to be with her so she wouldn't have to live in that house all by herself. And I walked upstairs just feeling really down on myself. I felt really bad about making my mom cry just with my own worldview and asking questions. And basically, I walked upstairs, flipped on my phone, went on YouTube. First thing on my recommended list was The Call, and it was literally the exact conversation that me and my mom just had. I mean, almost word for word. And, I'm not scared of admitting this. I broke down in tears. And I shot Seth an email just to say how much I appreciate what he's doing because it's so hard, so often for me just to remember that there are other people out there, and just those listening to this podcast right now, there are thousands of us. And everyone in this room, to some extent, has experienced that. And we all owe you such a great debt, Seth. You are someone who looked at what ought to be done before anything else, and regardless of the praise of men. And I really appreciate that a lot. And my question is, as a 22-year-old kid in college, and this is to anybody who wants to answer it or whatever, I'm still dealing with a lot of this reverberations from my religion, like from my days of Christianity and my indoctrination, and I still have night terrors of hell. I still have, even during the presentation, in the Jesus Camp thing, I started kind of getting a little, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just weird. Kind of twitchy, just because it was so reminiscent of my childhood. And I'm just wondering, man, in any of y'all's experience, or yours particularly, Seth, like, how long does that normally last? And I know to a certain extent it's completely personal, but that's my question.
Forever. Well, I know you've got some conflict at home. Look around you. You still have family, okay? The phone call video was somewhat autobiographical, based on challenges I've had in my own family. When you have parents who are not just believers, but absolute theologian level believers who have spent their whole life training up a child only to watch one of them drive to Springfield, Missouri on a night in April to speak out against the very God that they tried to teach us to love. You can imagine the heartbreak that they feel. I remember the night. I have a hard time talking about it. I remember the night. I was on the couch. I had Mom on the phone. And it was the first time I ever said to her the word atheist. And forgive me. That is a loaded word, right? You say the word atheist and it changes the temperature in the room. And so I've got my mom on the phone, and I've been through almost a year of questions. Mom and Dad, I've got questions. Can you help me answer these questions? They're theologians. I thought they'd have good answers. And so I finally got to the point where the answers were so nonsensical, they actually pushed me further away from belief. Have you experienced that? Where you go to someone who's supposedly an expert, and when you hear the answer, you go, that's just stupid. I'm actually more of a non-believer now that you have defended your faith. And I finally came to that point where I summoned up my courage, and I had Mom on the phone, and I said, Mom, I'm an atheist. And she's crying, and it's just terrible. And she says, no, you're not an atheist. No, you're not. Mom, I'm an atheist. No, you're not. No, you just have questions. I've been through the valley in my own life. I know what it's like. We've all been there, Seth. You just need time. And I'm convinced, I know in my heart Jesus will reveal himself to you. I told this story in Amarillo, Texas, and broke down too. Please forgive me. It's just such a hard story to tell. And the phone call digressed into pleading. And it was just awful. And I translated sort of a version of that conversation. I wasn't going to play the conversation, but I'd heard so many similar stories that I wanted to remind people that it's okay, you're not alone. And so I created a video called The Phone Call. How many of you have not seen the video? Do you have 5 minutes? If you'd like, I'll show it to you right now. Would that be all right? Will you guys in line be all right with waiting 5 extra minutes? For the podcast listeners, you won't be able to catch the very end of it, and I'll explain the text here in just a moment. But yeah, allow me to show you a video I released 2 weeks ago that is a reflection of the very types of conversations that divide households over the word atheist, okay?
I'm getting good at this.
Hello? Hello? Hi, Mom. Look, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. It is unbelievable that you would do this to us. Mom, it has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with me? I'm your mother. It has everything to do with me. Mom, how old am I? How old am I? How old do I have to be before I can live my own life? Make my own choices? You're my son, and you know I love you, and God loves you. Mom, I don't believe in God. Yes, you do. No, Mom, I don't. I know you do. We've been over this, and I don't want to fight about it. I remember the day when you got on your knees and said, Jesus, come into my heart, and that was real. Mom, I was 7. I was there. I saw your face. I was 7 years old. What does a 7-year-old know about anything? You used to read your Bible. I've read the Bible. I know what's in it. I know what it says. And I do not believe it. After all we've done for you, this is how you pay us back. I'm not paying anybody back for anything. I read the Bible. I know what's in it. I know you just wanted what was best for us. But I'm telling you, the Bible got it all wrong. Oh, you've got it wrong. The whole thing is a bunch of nonsense, and I'm not a kid anymore. And I'm not going back, Mom. I'm not going back. So, you're not going to believe in anything? I do believe in something. I believe in science. I believe in people. I believe in my family. I believe I'm a good person. I'm happy. I'm good. I'm in a better place than I've ever been. You think you're happy, but you're not happy. How do you know what I am? How do you know what's going on in my head? Everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us. It's like we don't even matter. I am my own doing person. Your own thing, embarrassing the rest of us. I have my going own through some mind. Kind of phase or something. Well, I hope you get it out of your system before you really screw up your life, because Mom, we're not going to just stand by and just watch it happen. Mom. And I hope you're not telling this stuff to my grandchildren. They deserve a parent who at least believes in God and not some... Say it. I'm not going to say it. Say it. Say the words, Mom. I'm an atheist. No, you're not. I'm an atheist, Mom. No, you are not. Mom, it's okay. I'm okay. It's okay to say it. I'm an atheist.
At the end of the video, for our podcast listeners, the text says, you want your child to be an individual, and then it switches and says, you want your child to be just like you. It says you honor boundaries, and that changes, and it says you cross boundaries. And ultimately the message is choose dogma, ? Choose division, choose doubt, choose pain, or choose your child, which is my overall message. Look, did you raise a clone? Did you raise a carbon copy? Did you raise somebody who was just a rubber stamp? Or did you raise an individual who should be celebrated for his or her life choices? How old do you have to be before your life is your own to live? What about mutual respect? What about adult disagreement? What about allowing someone to live in their own skin instead of the skin you fitted for them? You have every right to do so. Now, to speak to Colton's other question about the deep-seated fears of hell, quite often ingrained from an early age, those aren't easy to get past, and there's no pat answer for how to get past them. In my own life, I struggled, even as an atheist, with questions like, what if I'm wrong, right? What if I got this one wrong? I don't want to go to hell. I'm afraid of hell. I'm afraid I'm going to go to hell. What am I going to do? I've had emails from people who have nightmares, who struggle with it every single day. What worked for me was time. It was allowing myself more time in the free thought community and around good science. You'd be amazed. Well, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you already know how liberating it is to be surrounded. I mean, I'm always got a video up, or I'm always listening to a podcast, or I'm always watching Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, listening to Lawrence Krauss, as he does his Universe from Nothing speech. I must have seen it 15 times. I just like to have it up. Christopher Hitchens videos, I play all the time, over and over again. I miss that guy, by the way. And to hear the message of rationality, and to hear the voices of people who, like you, do not believe in crazy mythology, to realize you're not alone and that it's okay. Over time, for me, empowered me. And I got to the point where I was afraid of the Jesus story and his threat of hell, to the point now where Jesus is a punchline. That's why in some of the stuff I post on Facebook, Jesus is mocked. Some people take me to task for doing that, right? You're disrespecting these people. How are you supposed to reach those in the faith if you disrespect what they believe? And I'm like, this one's not necessarily about them. I'm taking the monster in the closet that used to scare me, and I'm now putting it under my feet and saying, you're powerless. I'm no longer afraid of the crazy writings of primitive, cattle-sacrificing, anonymous authors who had no idea what the world or the universe was like. I have better information. I'm alive in an age where we are reaching out to the stars, and it's okay to not believe in hell. And it took me a few years, and now I don't worry about it at all. My hope is the same for you, okay? What is your name?
My name is Terry. I don't know if anybody else does this, but whenever Seth, when I listen to his podcast, I always talk back to him. And so, I don't know if some of them are raising their hands, and this past one was about morality and stuff like that, and I wouldn't kill Hitler because that's not in my character, and I wouldn't give up my grandma's favorite possession because that's just, to me, that's just wrong, but but it's always thought-provoking, which is awesome. And so you started a seed within me, and I was thinking about, what morality question do I really have burning within me? And basically, I just want to ask you your thoughts on citizens in America who could work or are able to work, but don't choose to work because they could go to college and get Pell Grants and live off the government that way, or, have welfare, but they could work. Is this a morality issue? Because they are feeding off of, the fruits of others?
I think it's less moral.
What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? Tens of thousands of people listening, and you ask me a question like that. Send your messages to hate@thethinkingatheist.com. I'll answer my own opinion. I mean, it's just one guy's opinion, certainly no more important than any of yours. I believe that, and I do not want you to take the Mitt Romney leap. I want you to hear what I'm saying here, okay? I believe that in all facets of life, you will find producers and you will find parasites. And it's unpopular to say that there are people. My parents worked for the state for decades. And there were some people genuinely benefited by state assistance. They had a moment of need, a year of need, whatever, and they were genuinely benefited, and they needed help. They needed a helping hand. There were so many who were happy to take. They had no motivation to be anything, to do anything, to become anything. They just wanted the next welfare check, and those people exist. We all know people in our families or friends. Some people who work hard and play hard and give, and they're ambitious, and they just want to better themselves every single day. And conversely, you probably have somebody in your inner circle, outer circle, who there's a free meal, they're at the end of the table. That's the only time you see them. If somebody passes away and there's an estate thing, they're there to get as much as they can get. If there's any way they can get an angle, get an edge to take, instead of give, those people are there. They suck the marrow out of life. I think it is, obviously it's a moral question. It's a character question. It's not one that is certainly easily answered. I think it's a case-by-case thing. I don't put people who get Pell Grants and whatnot into the taker category necessarily. I think some people go back to school to better themselves, and I totally support that. It's the people who sit around and let life pass them by and let everyone else pay and subsidize their life. The people who decide, I'm going to be as little as possible, and I'm just going to coast on by while everybody else does the heavy lifting. Those are the people that cook my noodle. And quite frankly, I, in my mind, would be just as happy to cut them off, to throw them into the deep water and say, sink or swim. It's on you. You're able-bodied, you have a mind, you have hands, and I'm sick and tired of paying your way. Does that sound totally cold and calloused? Because I don't mean for it to. There are always some people who come after me and they say, you just hate the people who are at a disadvantage in this world. And I'm like, absolutely not. I love the idea of charity. Public charity, private charity, whatever's most effective. It's the people who wake up in the morning and say, how can I put one over so I don't have to do anything with my life? Those people make me crazy. That answer your question at all?
Actually, yeah, because it makes me feel a lot better. It does, because it makes me feel like I'm not quite as insane about it. Because
What's
you're
your
passionate.
email? I'll have them send the messages to your house, okay? No, thank you for the question.
Thank you.
All right. How's everybody doing? You guys having a good time?
Yes.
Are we past the bedtime? Wait, you atheists have no morals. You don't care what time you go to bed. Mm-hmm. Come on up here. What's your name?
Rachel.
Stand nice and close to the mic. What's your
Okay.
question?
Well, it's another one about what cooks your noodle. I have a friend who, as I deconverted, she is now getting more religious. And one thing that she said to me months ago that, thinking about it now, still kind of gets me burning is the idea of Christian persecution, at least within the United States. I don't know how many other people have heard this. Like, I've heard, a bookstore in our town is having issues, and it's because it's a Christian bookstore. And I had to do my cost benefit of just putting all caps. Really? In countries where even Christian persecution is a real thing, you think it's in the United States. Oh, poor you. You can post whatever you want and get away with it. So do you hear, are there things that you see or hear that just kind of makes you just start pounding away at the keyboard?
Thank you. I had this almost exact conversation recently, right? I live in Oklahoma. I said in my book that Oklahoma is notorious for two things, tornadoes and churches, and the tornadoes are easier to escape. I was speaking to a believer who was concerned for my very soul, right? And they email me and they say, I'm just worried about you. Let me give you the short version. And they said, it started with, hey, I heard you wrote a book. And I'm like, and they didn't know all about the book. And I know they're a devout believer, and I'm had that conversation. God, do I really want to go down this road? This is a friend. I finally send her the book. She reads a few chapters and kind of gives up. She doesn't like what she's reading, and she kind of stops. And I get a message from her that says, hey, would you like to come join us for Sunday Easter services? And it kind of pissed me off, right? I've just made a declarative statement of I reject your deity. And you just said, hey, would you like to come and join us to celebrate the very deity you just rejected? Duh. Yeah, you know. And we went down that conversation tree. And she brought up that she believes that Christianity isn't tolerated anymore in this country. And I threw up a little bit in my mouth. And I responded, okay, wait a minute. President Obama is doing national prayer breakfasts. He's not doing them for Islam, by the way, or Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, any Eastern religion. He's doing it for Christianity, right? You're teaching the Bible. You've got "In God We Trust" on your money. You had "Under God" inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance. You go to a hotel room and there's a Bible, a Gideon Bible in your hotel room. Not a Dawkins book, not a science book, the Bible. You live in a city where there are 2 major religious universities. There's only 3 colleges in my town that I can think of, major colleges. 2 of them are Christian. And actually, the 3rd one is owned by religious people or run by the religious. So it's a trifecta of Jesus. There's a church on every half block. They just put a church up a stone's throw from my house. It's not just a church. Right on the corner that I drive by every single day, they put up 3 crosses. Big suckers. It gets better. On the thieves' crosses, on the left and the right, they hung an outdoor television screen with announcements on it. So there's Jesus' cross behind the TV, and the thieves' cross is holding up the monitor. All this is happening, and you aren't tolerated? 2 days later, I got a 1-sentence reply that said, "Point taken." That was all I got. I think the victim card is a knee-jerk defense mechanism. I'm persecuted, they're coming after my faith. When in truth, you're not persecuting anyone, you're raising a hand of disagreement. Religion has gone largely unchecked and unchallenged for a long, long time. And think about it. We finally have the tools to be able to look up and source the information they are presenting from the pulpit, from the pew, from our own homes. Right? They live in an age now where if they come to you and they say the earth is 6,000 or 10,000 years old, you can pretty quickly find reputable science sources that refute that claim. Well, religion's not going quietly. So what they do is they play the victim card. You're stealing my joy. Why don't you respect me? Why don't you respect my faith? Why are you attacking me? I'm not attacking you. You made a claim, I made a refutation. I think the cries of protest are only going to get louder. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Okay? Thank you, Rachel. Let's do a few more. If you guys are good, I'm feeling all right. I don't know if it's just the euphoria of being around so many hellbound heathens for the evening, or I'm so grateful that you guys are here. I do my show in a studio with a microphone, and I love it. The podcast, I used to be a video producer who did podcasts. Now it's sort of become, I'm a podcaster who produces videos. It's this weird thing where the podcast is skyrocketed, right? And it's one of the times of the week where I just can't wait. 6 o'clock on Tuesday night. I cannot wait. I've prepped it as best I can, and I don't ever get nervous usually when I'm on stage or doing a show. It's always about 2 minutes before. I have like 120 seconds of I'm nervous. And then it's gone. And then we do the show, and it's a kick. It's like charging your battery. And this is like the Energizer Bunny of podcasts, because what happens is everybody comes out and you get to see the faces of the people who are listening, and you get to hear the stories of how and where they listen, and you get to encourage them and they encourage you, and you get to remind each other that it's okay. And look, maybe this feels like group therapy to you, but I love it. And I'm so glad you guys came out to be a part of the evening. It means a great deal to me. Come on up, sir. Come on up. What's your name?
My name's Philip Landrigan. I kind of consider myself more anti-theist rather than atheist. I try to actively argue as much as I possibly can with theistic people. I understand that the person I'm arguing with usually probably won't ever agree with me, but hopefully other people around will hear it and start to critically think about things. As many times as I've argued with people, I spent a lot of time preparing for that stuff, but I recently was talking to someone I met who is a recent deconvert, grew up Baptist and is now agnostic. And in talking with her, I found out she has no idea how evolution works or lots of other sciences. And it just made me really sad that these people are growing up so sheltered. They don't understand reality, really. And I was just kind of wondering, what do you think about, how do you feel about these people, and how do you feel about helping them out without making them feel dumb, you know? I don't want to insult them, but I want to help.
Well, you're absolutely right in the arena of ideas when you're debating. Look, when Christopher Hitchens or whoever was debating William Lane Craig, you're not changing the mind of William Lane Craig. It's not really about him. The debate is about all the people in the periphery who are listening in, and that's how I feel about it. You know, I had a presuppositionalist apologist on my show last year, a guy named Cy Ten Bruggencate, who is, I call him the inventor of the weapons-grade facepalm, because that's what I was doing for the entire, it's unbelievable. He was sending, he was not receiving. He came off with that nauseatingly superior tone that God had reached down and sort of given him the kiss of knowledge, and therefore he was here to enlighten the rest of us. And I'm just like, you gotta be shitting me. But my conversation with him wasn't about him. It was about everybody listening. And David Silverman and I were talking about it. And, American Atheist is very much in your face, right? But like the Center for Inquiry, they take a softer tone. Different people, different organizations have different methods, and they're all valuable. I'm kind of a teddy bear, right? I'm not a militant in your face. If I sneeze and someone says, God bless you, I immediately create an opportunity to go after them and say, I don't believe in God. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. God, what are you thinking? There are people who do that. I do not. That's not really a good fit for me. I think there are some people out there they need to be on the front lines, swinging for the fences to fight the unpopular battles. I'm not the guy who would go after a city for having a nativity set on the lawn of a fire station, that kind of a deal. But it's a battle that should be fought, and it's a good fit for someone else. I want to see more of this in the free thought community. I love people. I don't love atheist people. I love people. Religious, non-religious, I love people. With a few exceptions, I love people. I think we need more empathy and compassion in the free thought movement. Less, you're a religitard, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, you are insert slur here. I'm not going to waste my time with you. Anyone who has browsed the YouTube comment section has seen how ugly people can be to each other. And I think you can be strong and firm and love people. You can be angry and love people. And it doesn't mean you have to be a doormat, but man, people feel that. And if you walk in and treat them like a piece of dirt under your shoe, what are you doing? It's a human being, most likely indoctrinated by family and culture. You know what? If people had had that attitude with me, the Thinking Atheist would not exist today. This meeting would not exist. I might still be in the faith because I was treated like, a caricature. We need to treat people like people. And when the time comes to get good and pissed off, and those times do come, it means something. It's the right fight at the right time. Would you guys agree with that? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, Seth.
What's your name?
James Kaiser, and I am a jury student, and I was mainly wanting to share a facepalm moment. I just love the term. I've been using it ever since I heard it. So I scrolled through Facebook one day, and I seen this picture that says, if you worship a God who's killed millions of babies, shut up about abortion. And I shared it, and then one of my cousins came on and said, if you were a true atheist, you would not be posting bullshit like this. No, you know God exists, and for some reason you are mad at him. So I just responded, I'm going to facepalm and move on. And I thought that was the best response I could come up with.
One of the times I got in the most trouble on Facebook, and I still can't decide if I regret doing it. I honestly don't. I don't know what, we spoke about how mockery to me is liberating, right? I put it on Facebook. It's a screenshot of Jim Caviezel as Jesus in Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. And you've seen that film, right? It's essentially 2 hours of torture porn. Jesus, the whole movie, it doesn't even have a purpose. It's just Jesus getting the shit kicked out of him, right? And the screenshot had him up here with his arms stretched out, he's nailed to the cross, and the caption said, "Not going anywhere? Time for a Snickers." And I put it on Facebook and called down the thunder. I mean, even atheists roasted me over that one. Look, if you go after people's faith, they are going to take it personally. I'm not naive enough to think otherwise. And I think there is merit to the argument that, sometimes it's okay to take feelings into consideration and not mock. But at the same time, for my part, I take liberation sometimes and dancing on the head of the serpent, so to speak, and having a little fun at religion's expense. You're never going to be agreed with. You're never going to be understood. Only you can make the judgment call as to whether or not it's worth it to put those things out there. And if they resonate with you, knock yourself out. Okay? That answer your question?
Yep.
Appreciate you, brother. Thanks. What's your name?
My name is Kat. I have a quick question for you, Seth. I'm a biology master's student here at Missouri State. When I started as a freshman almost 7 years ago, I feel old. I was actually a religious studies major my first semester. I took my first biology class here at Missouri State, had a great professor, deconverted on the spot. Within the first 6 weeks of class, switched over to biology as my major, writing minor, never looked back. Now I'm working on my master's, and I've kind of come across this phenomenon in some of my classes here. A good friend of mine that I met here at the university, she's very heavily religious. She's actually going the biomedical route, so she plans on being a doctor in the near future. She is probably one of the most devout people I've ever met in the program, and so it's kind of a contrast to go through because the university has such a secular curriculum, and she's one of those people that is a very literal follower of the Bible. Like, she believes in a literal 7-day creation, and we have conversations about this, and I'm like, how do you justify, an entire species originating from two people and not dying out over time? And she's like, well, Adam and Eve they had all of the genetic material for the genetic diversity for the entire species of humanity, and just weird answers like that. And we just kind of stopped talking about it after a while because it gets very frustrating. And I kind of want to know from you, how do you have the patience of a saint? Because listening to your podcasts and like some of the apologists you've had on over the years, I can tell, you can kind of hear it in your voice, how frustrated you get, but you still remain so in character and calm and rational and polite. And I just want to know, for the rest of us that maybe we kind of get a little bit too adamant about our belief or lack thereof, how do you go about doing that?
How do I remain relaxed and calm during a frustrating conversation? Vodka. Always good to lubricate a little bit before you go out. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not a big drinker. It's just a funny line. The one I got that made me crazy was the story of Methuselah, right? He lives to be 960-something years old. During a time period where the average lifespan was, 40, maybe 50. So you go to a person like she might be speaking, even a person in the scientific community, and you say, how is this possible? And I've heard on several occasions, well, our DNA was purer back then. So because we didn't have all the toxins and stuff in it, people were able to live a long time. And you look at these people and you honestly fear for the species, don't you?
Yes.
I don't understand how people can dive in, well, maybe to a degree I do, can dive into the hard sciences and continue to defend crazy mythology. Dr. Michael Shermer has written some amazing books on the subject, though. One's called The Believing Brain. And he deals with these very things, and he says it outright, which I appreciate. Christians are not dumb. It's not about intelligence. Some people, he speaks about patternicity. Some people are so intelligent that they're so heavily wired to see patterns everywhere they look that it makes it easier for them to see design where there is not design. There's something else going on. I don't think you can do anything about the frustration. I don't think that means you stop making the argument. If somebody wants to believe in God and be a physician, knock yourself out. But I'll tell you, when the chips are down, if I have the chance to call a trained physician or drop to my knees and call down favors from the eye in the sky, my money's on the trained human physician, right? I don't know how these doctors do it. They open somebody up, they do surgery, they sew them back up, they give them the antibiotics, trained medical personnel give them 24/7 care, nurse them back to health, and they recover. They sit up and they rub the cross around their neck and praise Jesus. And I'll tell you, if I was the physician there, I would be like, nurse, we need a prescription laxative because our patient here is completely full of shit. Thank you very much, Kat. Come on up. Let's do these last two and we'll call it a night. What's your name?
Barbara.
Talk to me, Barbara.
Hey, I just want to give two stories of hope addressing two items that you talked about tonight. The first one is when I came out to my father as an atheist, he disowned me, and we didn't talk for about 9 years. He called me on my birthday last year. We talked for about 2 hours. He only brought up atheism once to quote me something Paul Harvey said, asked if I still was atheist, like I was going to come back from it, and but otherwise left it alone, so there's hope there. The second item, talking about indoctrinating children. When we moved to Arkansas, we moved to a town of about 110 people, and their school there, my daughter was in kindergarten. She started coming home, and she started pointing out people who are going to hell on television. Oh, he's going to hell. Bad guys on television are going to hell. And then she started having nightmares about Satan. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Because although I was still Christian, I had left the church behind. I didn't want to be associated with Christians because I saw them as a bunch of hypocrites, and I was calling myself a follower of Christ at that time. So I didn't know where this was coming from. I finally sat her down. I'm like, what's this about? And she says, well, the Bible ladies told us. Turns out every Thursday at Valley Springs elementary school, they were having the Bible ladies come in and take up 1 to 2 hours of time. I was shocked. I called the principal, and I did not want to give him my real name because I'd have a cross burning in my lawn. And he basically told me, well, we've been doing this since the beginning of the school, and if you want to make a complaint, I'm going to need your name. And I told him, I'm not going to give you my name. I don't want a cross burning in my lawn. And he said, well, I already know your child's name is Michael. And I don't even know where he got that. But anyway, back and forth. He called me spineless twice because I wouldn't give him my name. And finally, he's like, well, if you're not going to give me your name, we're going to just pretend this conversation never occurred. And I said, fine. And I hung up the phone and I called the ACLU in Arkansas. I talked to Rita Spillinger, who was the head of the ACLU. They put me right through to her. And she called me back half hour later. She said, within a week, we will have a letter from the Valley Springs School District saying they will no longer have the Bible ladies, or we will sue them. And a letter came. What do you know? So, yay, one person can make a difference.
And that's an example of one of those hard fights we're taking, one of those hard stands we're taking. We were speaking earlier about Catherine Stewart and her book, The Good News Club. These clubs sneak into the public school system under the guise of activities for our children that are going to be great fun for the whole family. And little do many parents know that they're giving kids treats and candy and bribing them to learn verses and try to bring their unsaved children friends to the party. Come on up. What's your name?
Dennis.
What's your name?
Dennis.
What do you have for us, Dan?
First thing was for, I think it was Colton, I think his name was earlier. I just wanted to give you a little another voice that's been down that road. I never had too many issues or second thoughts after I came to my own conclusions about my beliefs. But for me, atheism was merely saying, I don't know. Now, that being said, I had 3 wonderful boys, a wonderful little wife. And I did not want to sit there, if I was wrong, sit there and be the person that brought them to hell. And so I stood there and with my family, I hid my non-belief, from my wife and my kids for about 2.5 years. And then just slowly through conversations, my wife sat there, started noticing, well, you don't participate church as much as you do. You just kind of sit there now. Which, if there is a hell, it's either sitting in church as an atheist or it's Andy Gibbs singing Shadow Dancer for eons and eons, one of the two. But what finally broke it for me was reminding myself that I'm allowed to have the conversation, not just with other people like we are tonight, but I'm always allowed to revisit that conversation with myself. And that's what's helped me, and if that helps you, I hope it does. The other thing I was going to go with is, as a person in the military, I live in the stereotypical, clichéic world of God and country. And I think that's one of the most horrific things that has made Christianity so successful in this world, at least in this country, is the fact that it's been able to co-opt so many things. From co-opting Druidic holidays, for Christmas and whatnot, to the fact that it's co-opted the very culture of who we are today. If you're wearing that uniform, you must be a believer. It's just assumed. And then when they find out later on, you're an atheist? No, there's no such thing. The foxhole atheists don't believe, in which I shake their hand and say you've just met one. And so what my question is both to Seth, and to the whole group is, what ideas do people have as far as trying to retake some of those cultural identities that we have as people away from organized religion?
You got me. Good night. I was talking to Barbara earlier. She was talking about somebody who came to her and was speaking about how it's just terrible that people are trying to take Jesus out of the Easter holiday. And of course, she was thinking what you are thinking. Well, actually, Christianity took it from the pagans. And that's when the Christian cocks their head like a cocker spaniel. Never heard that before. What's a pagan? Put Christ back in Christmas. You guys heard that one, right? Somebody wrote Xmas. They X'd Christ out of Christmas. It's terrible. X is actually the first letter in the Greek word for Christ. Xmas is Christmas. I don't care. It's an X and it's terrible. It's actually part of a winter solstice celebration. It's traced back to pagan roots. By the way, the Christmas tree you have in your living room is a fertility symbol, and it's an offering to gods like Balder to have a good harvest the next spring. And Christmas carols aren't Christian in origin, by the way. Yule logs that you burn, that is for, I forget which god that was. They used to have a big party, a pagan festival, and they would burn the logs, and they would party till the last ember of the fire burned out, which it sounds like a hell of a bash. Now, you bring this to the attention of somebody who has a nativity set in their front lawn. Jesus is the reason for the season. You're not going to make much of a dent, but that information has to be put out there. People talk to me about atheism's just another religion, huh? Why can't you keep your atheism to yourself? You guys heard that one?
Because you can't keep your Jesus to yourself.
Absolutely. On my main website, I have that frequently asked question, and I say, you know what? Atheism and atheist activism exists because religion exists. Religion has gone largely unchecked for so long. And finally, somebody's raising a hand of opposition, and they go, why can't you just keep it to yourself? And those protests, again, are only going to increase. But when someone brings you bad information, I think you present good information. The more crazy thinking is challenged by rational, reasonable people, the more the conversation is going to be had, the more the dialogue is going to be within earshot, the more people who might be listening in the periphery might be emboldened to ask their own questions. I don't think it's going to get much easier for a while, but I think we continue to have the discussion. Have it on Facebook. Have it at a family dinner. I mean, not a special occasion, but when it's appropriate. Have it over a beer or coffee with friends. Have it whenever it is the right time. Have the hard discussion. Man, that pounding drum will not be ignored, and it's going to get louder and louder. I was telling the St. Louis group last night, and I'm sure you've heard the statistic, that none or non-religious is the single fastest growing demographic in the quote-unquote religion category in the United States. People ages 30 and younger are twice as likely as they were in 1990 to declare non-religion. Groups like the Secular Student Alliance are blowing up, exploding. Somebody's listening. The information's getting out. And they'll wail and protest and talk about how it's an attack of the evil one, and so what? Christopher Hitchens was right. The burden of proof is on them. Continue to bring good evidence to face crazy mythology, and the tide will turn. I am honored to do what I'm passionate about. You know, it's a dream to have I never felt this way when I was a believer. Even when I was on stage for Youth for Christ, I was 15 years old, right? You're 15 and you think you have all the answers. I'm a representative for Jesus. What do I know at 15, right? I'm being used as a good role model to try to grab other young people. I know what I was doing. But I was a true believer and felt great. When I was on the Christian radio station, I felt like I was doing God's good work. I felt great. I never had a feeling then, never, that I have now. I've never felt so comfortable in my own skin. Things are shitty at home sometimes, fine. I've got fears, deep-seated fears, maybe even irrational fears that one day I'll find myself without a career, fine. I'm in a highly religious state, surrounded by churches with people who don't understand me. Many of them think I'm an agent of Satan. Fine. I am happy. I am comfortable. I am liberated. I am free. And I want to be an encourager to other people that it's okay. I'll never be a Lawrence Krauss or a Stephen Jay Gould or a Richard Dawkins or a Christopher Hitchens. At the end of the day, though, you know, I'm a guy who's been through the soup like many of you. I have a leg up in the area of communication. I can tell a story. I can produce things. And I can be an encourager. And I want to be an encourager to you. What you're doing is making a difference. And you've certainly made a difference in my life. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And visit our website for resources, links, contact information, the editor's blog, and more. thethinkingatheist.com.